Is this who we are? Is this who we want to be? Is this who we want to pass on to our children and our grandchildren? Fear, anger, finger pointing? Or do we want to be the America we know we can be? The America we know in our hearts we could be and should be. You know, I've said from the outset of this election that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. American history isn't a fairy tale with a guaranteed happy ending. The battle for the soul of this nation has been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years. In some of our darkest moments of despair, we've made some of our greatest progress. We stand together, finally as one America, we'll rise stronger than we were before. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
And good evening to all of our fellow Floridians from here in Miami, Florida, to all over the state, Central Florida, the Panhandle. We welcome you all, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Biden for Florida live stream with 19 weeks left to go. At this time, 19 weeks from now, we will start seeing those results coming in, and we will be counting down to that moment where we declare that Joe Biden is our next president of the United States, POTUS 46, 133 days from tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Those of you that are starting to tune in, please start clicking that share button because we have quite a lineup of guests for tonight. And we have a very, very special guest coming and joining us at 9 p.m. That you will not want to miss. I've got my popcorn ready to go, and she's going to join us ready at around 9 o'clock to share with us her thoughts on GOP for Joe, the Republicans that are coming over and supporting Joe Biden. But right now, I want to welcome our 3 young members from across the state of Florida who are going to engage with our very first guest who's joining us this evening. The guy who started it all well before even Joe Biden launched his campaign, who helped organize the Biden for FL platforms. Robert Palacios is with us. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing good, and you?
Great, great. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert. And also, we've got Raymond Adderley from Broward County. Raymond, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us as well tonight. And my neighbor here as well in Miami, who is very active with Venezolanos Con Biden, is Lucas Lengifo Keller. How are you doing, Lucas? How's everything, buddy?
Great, Chris. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much for being here. And I want to be very respectful of our next guest's time. He's got just a few minutes to be with us. So we're going to start off talking about a group that Lucas is very active with, and that is Venezolanos Con Biden. The Latino group, Latinos Con Biden, are really going to help determine the outcome of this election all over the country, and especially here in the state of Florida. So please give a very warm welcome to the director of Latino Victory Fund, who helped put the wheels in motion for Venezolanos Con Biden. Mr. Leopoldo Martinez joins us this evening. Leopoldo, how are you tonight?
Thank you, Chris, Robert, Raymond, and my own Lucas Renhinfo Keller, who has done such an amazing work in putting together the group of Venezolanos Con Biden. He has been an inspiring and tremendous force behind this. I tell you, nobody thought, all of you, when this campaign launched, that the Latino movement coming around Joe Biden was going to be so strong and so well designed in terms of a strategy. And one of the things that Joe Biden and his campaign team have asked us to do from the very first day is to make sure that all the different voices of our Latino community are heard, included, participant in this election that is so important for all of us, particularly for all of you, the young folks in this conversation, because what is at stake is democracy. Democracy is in the ballot. We are deciding whether we want an inclusive, representative, deliberate democracy where everything that we know today as America continues to be the path forward to a more perfect union, to a society that understands the diversity of who we are today, a democracy that cherishes and promotes civil rights, human rights, and at the same time an inclusive economic system where everybody has equal opportunity, or whether we want a system that is neo-authoritarian, populist, dogmatic from the right, with exclusion, with visions that exclude others, and that feel that there are some of the people in the American experiment that are better than other, and that should be running our country while others just sit on the sidelines and wait for them to decide what to do with our country, our society, and our lives. It's not what Joe wants. Joe wants a very inclusive democracy where everybody has an opportunity, has a voice.
For sure. Leopoldo, I know that your time is short with us tonight, but I wanted to, in the context of everything that's going on, this report from Axios
already in this country. And one of the things that Joe Biden told us is when you organize this Latino movement, make sure that the diversity within the Latino community is represented. And it is because Latinos are very diverse. I mean, it's a coalition.
I think we lost Leopoldo's stream, but that's okay. He has great wealth of information to share with us, and it looks like he's getting back connected there. So we're going to get him back on with you guys. But we thank everybody who's posting comments, and feel free to keep sharing your comments on there. And it's an important time to be talking to somebody as intelligent on these issues like Leopoldo, especially as we see this Axios report coming out where the current president, if we even want to call him president, is talking about engaging with Nicolás Maduro and the dictatorship of Venezuela. It's something that has really brought the Venezuelan community in South Florida. It's gotten the community reeling. So Leopoldo, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that, and I don't know if Robert or Raymond have any questions for you, because I know Lucas gets you questions every day.
Yeah. Absolutely. So listen, what I was saying when the technology failed me was that we wanted to create this very diverse coalition, and that's why we have what we call the diaspora groups. And among the diaspora groups, we have Venezolanos Con Biden group, where Lucas has been so instrumental in putting together. And you just hit a nail there, Chris. Venezuelan Americans are concerned about the return to democracy in our homeland, but are also concerned about our immigrant experience here in the US. And we're also concerned about 150,000 Venezuelans who had to come to this country because of the humanitarian crisis and the oppression of the before Maduro Chavista regime. And for them, Joe Biden wants to give from day one TPS, temporary protected status. But also on this fight for democracy, Joe Biden has a commitment to human rights and democracy in Venezuela. And it's not about improvising. Tomorrow I meet with Maduro after I said everything I said in the past. If there is a man in the White House that can have a plan for Venezuela, credibility worldwide to bring a coalition of countries around a strategy, is Joe Biden. So there are so many reasons for Venezolanos to be behind Joe, but there are also, for those who are immigrants from Venezuela, so many reasons to want somebody like Joe Biden to restore the soul of the nation, because we went through a process in Venezuela where somebody from the extreme took over power. And guess what Chavez's strategy was? And I'm going to say a few things, and you're going to listen and think this is exactly what I'm going through here in the United States right now. The first thing Chavez did was to attack systematically the free press. He did not want the dissent expressed in the media. And he even called the media enemies of the revolution, which is pretty much what Trump says when he says the media is the enemy of the people. And then also Chavez has started to float the idea that the media was always lying about him. In recent days, when Donald Trump sent a cease and desist letter to CNN because they published a poll saying that he was losing the election, the CNN lawyers responded to the Trump lawyers saying the only cease and desist letter we have gotten from any politician in our history, asking us not to publish polls and anything that tells the truth about what's happening in their government or how people are thinking, was Hugo Chavez. So think about the parallel. The only other person in the world that has written or asked his lawyers to write a cease and desist letter was Hugo Chavez, and now Donald Trump. So this is what's happening, my friends. I mean, this is an attack on free media, and free press, and free to dissent. One thing. Another thing that happened in Venezuela was voter suppression. Voter suppression was part of the fundamental strategy of Chavismo. If I cannot get the votes, I will make them not be voting. I will stop them from registering. I will stop them from voting. I will make everything possible to make the electoral system not trustworthy for people, so people don't show up and vote. So voter suppression, where's that happening as well right now as we speak? Third thing that happened through Chavismo in Venezuela, now with Maduro, is divide and conquer. This divisive rhetoric, creating a climate of bigotry, hatred, and confrontation in the country about every issue. Nothing closer to what we're going through in the United States. And finally, among other similarities I want to share with you, when protests took the streets in Venezuela, the reaction of Chavez and Maduro was to brush the protests as desestabilization, as terrorism, and as violent. He was not listening to the cry for justice, democracy, and the protest. He wanted to use his media power to taint and brush this whole movement of the protest in Venezuela as terrorists, as dangerous for the stability of the country. And then repression began. And that is exactly what we're listening from the White House when we see the Black Lives Matters movement in the streets, when you see significant amount of citizens asking for racial justice, for a more equal society, and for a system that gives everybody the same opportunity in court and in life. And what is the reaction from the White House? Repression, even to the extent of throwing tear gas on folks who were pacifically protesting in front of the White House for a photo opportunity in front of a church. Yeah. That is so similar to what we in Venezuela went through. That Venezuelans who are immigrants to this country like myself do not want to go through a process that undermines democracy the same way it happened.
Of course not.
In Venezuela, this time from the extreme right. In Venezuela, it came from the extreme left, because populists come from the two extremes. Mm-hmm. And also for an immigrant, the American experiment, the American democracy, is a place where you have social mobility and inclusion. That is the vision we had. When I came to this country with my family, persecuted by the Chavista regime, one of the reasons we came to the United States is because we thought that America was a country of immigrants. And that among all the places in the world where we could go, this was one where our children and us could find the mobility and the opportunities that are associated with this concept of a nation of immigrants, like John Kennedy once said when he wrote that book. And guess what? Not only democracy is on the ballot, but also the very soul of this country as a nation of immigrants is on the ballot when we see that Donald Trump conceives the American experiment, the American experience, the American system as one that excludes the immigrant communities in our society as participants in that dream, in that opportunity that America represents.
And Leopoldo,
so all of that at stake, Chris.
Absolutely, and our Biden for FL panel, our team that is comprised of Lucas and Robert and Raymond are seeing it in the conversations that they're having with voters out there. I don't know if Robert or Raymond have any questions for Leopoldo before he has to hop off our conversation tonight. Would you guys like to ask the wisdom of Leopoldo that we've got access to tonight?
Leopoldo, thank you so much for your insight. We have learned so much, and also everything you said. We have seen it also with Cuban exile here in Miami-Dade County and across the state. The message of the GOP to attract the voter and calling up the party of the communists and the party of the socialists. What kind of message can we send to the Venezolanos here in Dade County?
Well, I wrote an article, an op-ed a few months ago in the Miami Herald, where I responded to that concern. And I am going to give you an example of a conversation I had with a Venezuelan family a few weeks ago, even before coronavirus, about that very issue. The first thing they wanted me to know is why I thought Joe Biden would continue to fight for Venezuelans and for the Venezuelan democracy. And I gave the reasons we just outlined at the very beginning of this conversation. But then they asked me about that. But you guys are socialists. You guys are far way to the left. And that is a word that resonates badly in our communities, people or families that come like yours from Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. You know, that's because the people who took power and destroyed our opportunities in our country did it in the name of socialism. And I said to them, forget about labels for a minute. Give me the 3 problems that are keeping you awake at night. What are the 3 biggest problems you have as a family, as a household? And they said, very candidly, this couple of friends, they said, well, the one issue we have now that is not letting us rest is that our daughter has just finished high school. She's going to go to college, and the cost of college education is something we're not sure we can afford. The options and the financing, it's complex. We don't know how we're going to do with this. And she is so enthusiastic, and she has a plan, and she has a few admissions already, but we don't know how financially respond to that problem. And then I said, keep going. And he said to me, well, the second issue that is keeping me awake is the insurance. Because in Florida, as you all know, the Affordable Care Act had been undermined by the governor, by Rick Scott. And also, this administration, since they took over, they've been rolling back a number of protections and benefits that we have under Affordable Care Act. For sure. And that translates into a coverage that in some states of the country is not protecting families the way it should. And they had an issue with their insurance because the only way they could continue was to move on into a HMO program. And the HMO program gave them some problems in dealing with some of the benefits and expenses they needed. And then he went to the third problem. And the third problem was his small business. I haven't spoke to them since the corona, because I'm sure this will be part of the conversation, because take note of this, my friends, only 12% of Latino-owned business in the United States, small businesses owned by Latinos, who represent 26% of the small business platform of our country did not have access. Only 12% have access to paycheck protection program. So only 12%. Think about that. 78% of Latino business owners had to close or fire people because they didn't have access to that fundamental program to protect employment. But then before coronavirus, this friend of mine was saying on the table, I have issues to access to small business loans. Under the Trump administration has become harder for small business owners and minority small business owners to be included in the different programs that let you access resources to grow your business and make a better living. So I said to him, well, here you have exactly what the Democratic Party and Joe Biden are fighting for. We're fighting for your healthcare. We're fighting for college access and affordability for your daughter. And we're fighting for financial inclusion for small business. The Republicans are calling that socialism.
Right.
We call it the American dream.
Amen.
Because that's how you build a market economy, by giving people opportunity. Now, I tell you something coming from Venezuela. Venezuela had a very solid democracy. But for years, our democracy in Venezuela started to forget about those who were left behind by the system. And inequalities grew up. And they grew so much, those inequalities, that they paved the way for the division and the populism that brought Hugo Chavez to power. So when inequality grows in a democracy, in a market economy, the way it is growing in the United States, democracy is at risk. And we're seeing it here coming from the extreme right with Donald Trump. So this friend of mine say, so why do they call you socialists? And I said, maybe because fighting for you, fighting for your daughter, fighting for your wife's insurance protection, for them, is out of the map. Mm-hmm. They don't want to do anything for the people. They want to do things for those on the top, for the big corporate interests, because when you are saying no to the Affordable Care Act or to expanding those benefits, you're basically protecting the insurance industry, mm-hmm. which is profiting. The insurance industry is profiting out of all of us, not making healthcare a right. When we don't provide a pathway for folks to have affordable college education, or when coming out of college becomes such a financial burden that you can't pay for that debt with the job you can get, we're failing to people as a society. And that has nothing to do with socialism. That has to do everything with democracy, with justice, with freedom, with empowering everybody so that you have a diverse society that works in a market economy that is fair, with equal opportunity, and that allows the middle class to grow so you have a stronger democracy.
And you, as one of the commenters who I'm very close to, Daniela, made in the comments, she said, you have given us a masterclass on specifically how to speak to our communities on these issues. And really appreciate your insight tonight, Leopoldo. Raymond, and I'll even let you, Lucas, get in, because I know Leopoldo has to jump off. But do either of you have a quick question for him before we move on?
I do, Chris.
Go ahead.
Leopoldo, thank you for being here as an Afro-Cuban. I have a provoking question for you that you might have an answer to. Where do Venezolanos Con Biden stand with the current Black Lives Matter protests that are going on? Two questions, really. To do a question, how do you support the movement in Miami, in Broward-Dade? And two, how do you relate to it as someone who escaped oppression and came to the United States?
Mm-hmm. Raymond, there is a fascinating letter that Dr. Martin Luther King wrote to Cesar Chavez back in their days of the civil rights movement. 1966, I think, was the exact year that Martin Luther King wrote that letter to Cesar Chavez. And what he said to him in that letter was, our struggles, our separate struggles, are really one. Latinos and African Americans are prejudiced in our system. The inequalities and inequities are not only expressing today, affecting our two communities after coronavirus in many ways. Most of the people infected with the virus, most of the people whose lives are lost because of the virus, most of the people who have lost their jobs are both African American and Latinos. Small business owners, same number I mentioned. People from the African American community who are business owners are having the same luck Latinos are having to get financial support through the crisis. Only 12% of them get support through the different mechanisms of the CARES Act. So those inequities are there. But when it comes to criminal justice, I know the issue is closer, longer, deeper, and heartbreaking in the African American community, but it's very similar with the Latino community. Kids, young people like you, of color, African Americans or Latinos, are 3 or 4 times more likely to be charged for the same under the same facts than a white young person. The issues of systemic racism are affecting both of our communities, and are an expression of a debt we have as a society with both communities, but both become the same problem, although they have different structural causes.
Right.
And we have to address that. We need leadership with the courage to address that. And in this one, every time I see the folks in the streets protesting for what happened to George Floyd and the many others that have gone through similar situations, for the many people who were convicted by juries for crimes they did not commit, even to the atrocity of death penalty, that has happened in our country. It has not happened to the white man. It has happened to the African American man, and to some extent, and to a lesser extent that some people can imagine, compared to the African American community, but it's happening also to our Latino community.
For sure.
This very moment, Raymond, we're speaking, Latino families are being tortured in the United States. Because when you separate a child from their mother and their father, when they're seeking asylum, and you put them on 2 legal processes that are different, running the risk of not getting them back together in years, or maybe I don't know when, because the cases are heartbreaking. That is the practice of torture. You're torturing the mother, you're torturing the child. Out of a situation that is taking place in our country, these people are coming to our country because they're seeking protection of their human rights, given the violence or the circumstances they're going through in Central America or in Venezuela or in other places in the world. So I understand now more vividly than ever the letter between Dr. King and Cesar Chavez. It's one struggle, my man. It's one struggle. We're going through this together. And it's the diction of us, African-American voters and Latino voters, is that coalition, the one that is going to bring the power that we need to elect Joe Biden. And most importantly, not only electing Joe Biden, retaining the control of the House of Representatives and gaining some seats in the Senate. Because what we have now under Mitch McConnell, it's a legislation graveyard. This man is killing every piece of legislation that comes out of the House to give you or anybody on this call opportunity. So as important as electing Joe is preserving those gains we have in Congress. And that can only happen if every African-American voter and every Latino voter is registered, it's voting, and is making sure that every primo, tia, hermana, friend, relative goes out and vote. We got to make this the election of our lives, my friend. We
right.
got to fight this one like we're fighting in the streets today. And we got to channel, President Obama said it very well, we got to channel all that energy that is in the streets, not to generate frustration and outrage. We got to channel all that energy to get that movement that is in the streets protesting to become votes. If all of them vote and get out the vote, we win this, and we win this big time.
And Leopoldo, with your help, we're on the path to do that in just little over, what do we got? We got 133 days left till the election.
Yeah.
So you guys
Chris,
had great questions.
I have a few more minutes if Lucas wants to ask me or share something before I jump on a TV show I have to do at 9:15.
Please, Lucas, definitely make sure you share in there how the viewers can connect with all the great work that you guys are doing on social media with Venezolanos Con Biden.
Absolutely. We're pretty much everywhere on social media. We're doing it very best to get our image out there, to get Joe's message out there. I think, like Leopoldo said, there's a great deal of misinformation coming from the GOP side. They understand that our community suffers greatly under the current government in Venezuela, and they pander with the possibility of regime change, knowing that they can't influence that variable so easily, while at the same time withholding the one thing that is within their power, which is TPS. The Trump administration had every opportunity to extend temporary protection status to Venezuelans who are asking for asylum, and yet they've absolutely refused.
That's right.
And so this is actually something that I wanted to ask Leopoldo, since he's close to the Biden. I wanted to know how exactly and when Biden expects to pass TPS for Venezuelans.
Lucas, I want to share with all of you before I go and let you continue with your incredible guests today. I was a congressman even by that time, before being an immigrant and now playing the role I play here in the United States in the Democratic Party. I met many senators.
Oh no. We're clinging on that last word, but that's okay. We'll get him back in a second because I know, that's the nature of technology. In the meantime, I want to encourage, especially those of you that are watching us on Facebook, to connect with the Venezolanos Con Biden group. Make sure you check that out. And Leopoldo's always posting great information. We were clinging on your last word, Leopoldo. Take it away.
Yeah, I was saying that I met the vice president in that capacity, in my capacity as a congressman in Venezuela and then as an advocate for Venezuela. And I've seen him close and personal, how related he is to this issue, how clear he has the path to build a coalition that will bring meaningful changes in Venezuela, and his commitment to TPS. But one thing I have to say about a Biden presidency and compared to a Trump presidency is that Joe Biden will not play with the emotions and the suffering of the Venezuelan people like Donald Trump is. When you deny TPS to Venezuelans that are here in the United States, you are contradicting yourself if you do that. You cannot say there is a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, which there is, and then not give those who are here the treatment that somebody who has fled a humanitarian crisis deserves. And when you play the same playbook that it has been played with our Cuban brothers and sisters in Florida for the past 60 years by the Republicans about regime change and other fantasies that you create when you speak about all options being on the table and around the table and under the table. Guess what? We don't want to see the same history repeat with Venezuela as it has with Cuba.
Absolutely.
We hope that we can find alternatives, both for Venezuela out of future administration of Joe Biden. But the only way that could happen is if the Florida voter takes ownership of the future of this election. There is no path for Donald Trump if we win Florida. And my take is that we can win Florida, especially if folks like you on this line, from this very diverse Latino community, young, up-and-coming leaders of our party, take ownership on this process and say enough of the lying, enough of the manipulation and misinformation. I know exactly what's happening. I know exactly what needs to happen. And you're not going to play with me like you have been playing with the Cubanos and now with the Venezolanos for the past few years.
That's right. Leopoldo, I think
get out and vote.
I think the viewers all over the state of Florida are taking your message to heart, and we are going to flip Florida blue with Biden in just 133 days. Thank you so much. I know you have another interview to do, and I really appreciate the time that you have given us and all the leadership that you have given to the Venezolanos Con Biden movement, and we encourage everybody to join using the link at the bottom of the screen.
Fantastic, and thank you, Lucas, for the great work, Chris, Raymond, and Robert, and everybody who was here.
Thank you, Leo.
They're all great members of the team of Biden for Florida. Thank you so much, Leopoldo. So that was Leopoldo Martinez, head of Venezolanos Con Biden, and we want to encourage you guys to stick around with us because we have a very, very special guest about to join us, who is also joining the Coalition of Latinos Con Biden, but she is a Nica Con Biden. We gave you guys a little bit of a few hints as to who our very special guest was tonight. I told you guys I had my fiance Daniela Ferreira popped my popcorn for me, got that ready for me, and she's going to give us her view on a movement that is growing in exponential numbers these days, and that is GOP for Joe. There is a huge number of Republicans that are just fed up with Donald Trump and are going to join us in just 133 days to say, us, United States is greater than 45. If you haven't already, hit that share button because your friends will thank you very much for sharing this video as we welcome our next guest, who doesn't join us from the set of The View today, but I don't know, I hope she's here in South Florida. Joining us now is Miss Ana Navarro. Ana, how are you?
How are you? Good evening to all of you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You texted me today, and of course it's quarantine, so I'm free and happy to join you. And no, I'm not on the set of The View. I'm in my house, watching with worry and concern as these numbers go in an uptick. The COVID case numbers are in an uptick in Florida. And I think it's in large part because it's become very political. And so somehow, people have been able to politicize wearing a mask or not. I guess the idea of listening to science, listening to facts, listening to medical experts and scientists and doctors is just a Democrat idea. And somehow wearing a mask is a sign of weakness and cowering to big government and whatever other nonsense. The bottom line is the uptick of cases, and we all have got to take this seriously because the political folks manipulating the subject may care about your party, but COVID doesn't.
Absolutely. This is a very, very difficult time for our country, and unfortunately, we don't have the leadership that we need or that we deserve. Ana, you've been a lifelong Republican, and you're recognizing in this moment that we are desperately in need of that leadership. And I know that you have made public statements to the effect, but what is it that you see in Joe Biden that makes you confident that he will be, for sure, a better president than Donald Trump?
How long do we have? No,
as long as you can give us.
How long do we have? So that I can look. First of all, let me say this. I've known Joe Biden for a very long time. because I was an advocate for immigration laws benefiting Nicaraguans and Central Americans. And even as a very young person, I was an advocate for getting the communists out of Nicaragua and getting that government back to being a democracy. And in that capacity, as a wet behind the ears type of young activist, I visited Joe Biden and got to know Joe Biden, and then got to know him even more as the years progressed. I actually was backing John McCain in 2000, strongly backing John McCain, ended up being the chair of his Hispanic coalition national council. But I'd given money to Joe Biden because my dream was to have people who cared about the country, who had experience, who were courteous, who had some civility, running against each other. He wound up being Barack Obama's vice president. So, and I've kept up with Joe Biden. I know him not only from the political aspect, but also from the personal aspect. We share grief in common. I remember one time inviting him to do something down here in December, and him telling me that he couldn't because it was the date when his wife, his first wife, and his little daughter had died so many years before. And he said, I always keep to myself that day. I really can't bring myself to do anything. My brother died, my older brother, and it happens to me. Every June 6th, I kind of, like we say in Spanish, me recojo. I kind of, just kind of hold myself in and really can't bring myself to do much. And so I know Joe Biden as a politician. I know Joe Biden as a human being. I know Joe Biden as an American. I've seen him with Jill Biden. So what is it about Joe Biden? Geez, look, Joe Biden, and it's so unfair to compare Joe Biden to Donald Trump, because really Joe Biden's qualities stand on their own. Mm-hmm. Guy's given all his life to public service. He knows things. He actually knows where things are on the map. He actually can tell one country from the other. He can tell the difference between the Kurds and the Kuds. Right. He actually can. He can probably even spell it. Joe Biden has got a very long record. Joe Biden has worked across the aisle. I feel comfortable with Joe Biden. I can disagree with him on many issues, and I do. I disagreed with McCain. I disagreed with Jeb Bush on issues. So what? I'm not expecting a clone of my ideology to be in the White House. I'm expecting somebody that is decent, that is normal. And so I think we need to do this two ways. I think, first of all, we need to look at how Joe Biden on his own has his qualifications that make him fit to be president. And then you look at who he's running against. And look, there's a lot of things in life that might not be binary choices. You can go to Starbucks, assuming they're open wherever you live, and you can choose from one of 20 different types of milk or not milk. You can choose 20 different types of sugar or not sugar, and sizes and this. Elections are binary choices. You're either going to vote for Joe Biden or you're going to vote for Donald Trump. And if you don't vote, you're voting for Donald Trump. Let's make that clear. Because all those people who in 2016 decided that Hillary Clinton didn't fill their love tank, didn't make their love juices flow, and went off and thought, you know what, I'm just going to cast a protest vote for the pot smoking guy in New Mexico or for the Green Party lady, Jill Stein. Right. Woke up with a political hangover the next day. Yeah. And so I hope we all learned our lesson that these elections are a binary choice. And if you decide to throw away your vote and not vote for Biden, you are voting for Trump. You are implied voting for Trump. I want a president who has a heart. I want a president who has a brain. I want a president who doesn't use the presidential bully pulpit to bully other Americans. I want a president who doesn't use racist terms on purpose. I want a president who doesn't dedicate himself to dividing America. and sowing discord, and who thinks the way he comes up is by making others feel inferior. I want a president who doesn't call Mexicans rapists and criminals. I want a president who doesn't put children in cages. I want a president who has not been accused, credibly accused, by almost 20 women of sexual assault and sexual harassment. I want a president who I haven't heard on tape boasting about sexual assault. Is that too much to ask?
No.
I want a president who is a normal human being, preferably one who's not orange. That'd be good too.
Agreed.
So anyways, there goes my answer. I asked you how long we had.
It was a very good one, and I agree with you on every single one of those points. And again, I think the vast majority of Americans will as well. One of our viewers said, perhaps Ana Navarro for VP. Would love to hear your thoughts on what you think the criteria Joe Biden should use for VP. Neither Lucas nor Robert nor I are in contention. I guarantee you that. We're definitely out of contention. And now Amy Klobuchar is also out of contention. There was a big event with Val Demings here in our state just a few minutes ago that just wrapped up. Val Demings' profile is going up. But would love to hear your thoughts on that. And I don't know if Lucas or Robert, and I know Raymond may be hopping on again, if you guys have any questions for Ana.
Well, first let me answer what I think the criteria is. First of all, you guys don't meet the criteria. I hate to tell you this, you got the wrong parts. Maybe we can work on that, but I'm not going to work on it in the next couple of weeks. Frankly, and I say this as a Latina woman, I hope and I think Joe Biden should pick an African American woman because the times call for it. Because, so many communities have felt targeted and harassed under Trump, but probably no other community as much as the African Americans. And because for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years, since the advent of slavery in this country, they have had a literal and figurative knee on their neck that does not allow them to breathe. And I also think he should pick an African American woman because there's a stable of qualified, supremely qualified, wonderful, charismatic, well-known African American women to pick from. I don't want him. I'm happy he said he's going to pick a woman. I don't want a token woman, and I don't want a token African American. But you see, he's got a cornucopia, a bountiful cornucopia of qualified women that he can actually pick from. I've seen this movie before. Remember, I was on the McCain campaign. I supported John McCain. I've seen when a token is picked, and it's a disaster. But Kamala Harris ain't no token, and Val Demings ain't no token, and Stacey Abrams is no token. And on and on and on. The mayor from Atlanta. There are just so many good, qualified, solid African American women. That would get me really enthusiastic and engaged. My God, I'm gonna vote for Joe Biden if he picks my 5-pound poodle Cha-Cha as VP. I will. It really does not matter to me, but my heart would be full of joy. If I could vote for a Biden-Harris ticket or a Biden-Abrams ticket or a Biden-Demings ticket. And I think it is time. The times call for it. It's been too painful. We've seen so much suffering of the African-American community in such a short time. And I think it would go a long way in contrasting the differences, and they've earned it. Those women have earned it.
Agreed. I think that's exactly, you're literally reflecting all the thoughts that all of us could potentially have on this issue. But I don't know if Lucas or Robert or Raymond have a quick question for Ana. I know her time is short with us, but I'd love to get some of the younger folks from our state to have this opportunity to share a question with her.
First of all, thank you, Anna, for all you do. I always admire you watching on TV on CNN. You're too proud of 305. My question is, among Republicans, what is their opinion behind the cameras? 45.
Look, so many people, but that has changed some, because it used to be that in private, particularly at the beginning, first there were people who thought, okay, he's a disaster. So many Republicans that I spoke to in 2016 before the election agreed that he was unfit, that he was an absolute disaster. He did something very smart. He put out that list of conservative judges he was going to pick from for the Supreme Court, and he has delivered on that. And many of my friends who found him morally reprehensible and who held their nose and voted for him because of the Supreme Court. And a lot of them would tell you he was going to grow into the office of the presidency. The gravitas of walking into that office, of that table, of the Oval Office, was going to make him come up in stature, he was going to grow as a human being, grow into the presidency. Well, he hasn't. The truth is, he has changed the presidency for the worse. He has changed the Republican Party for the worse, and he has changed the country for the worse. He is not going to change. I've said this before, and I will say it again. I got a little bit of experience with older men. They don't change after they're done teething. They just don't. You are not going to change Donald Trump at this point in his life. And so at the beginning of his presidency, there were a lot of Republicans who would whisper in the green rooms and behind closed doors that he was a disaster, that he didn't know anything, that he was ignorant, that the things he said were reprehensible and infantile and childish. But that has changed, because you see, you can only say that for so long and still kind of be able to hold your identity. You can only have two faces for so long. So I think a lot of them have now convinced themselves, many out of fear, many out of convenience, that is no longer the case. And so now you see people who used to spit out his name and who used to say things about him in public. People like Lindsey Graham, people like Marco Rubio, people like Lying Ted, who used to be truthful about him in public and in private, are now singing his praises and eating out of the palm of his hand. Why? Because practically every single Republican who dared oppose or speak up against Donald Trump, people like Ileana Roth-Layton, people like John McCain, people like Jeff Flake, people like Mark Sanford, practically every single Republican who dared oppose him either lost their primary, lost their general, or died. And so there are fewer Republicans today, but they are far more loyal to Donald Trump because it's become a cultish type of environment, a lot of it due to fear. He's become the Wizard of Oz, and they fear him. They fear the sound of his voice. They fear the attack tweets. They fear him going into their primaries, regardless of how small they may be. We've seen this guy interfere in primaries for local elections. He's that petty. He's that petty and that vindictive. And so they're afraid of him, and they no longer speak out against him because they've just, they've lost any semblance of a spinal cord and a conscience and convictions.
But Anna, thank God for people like Rick Wilson and Steve Schmidt and George Conway, who are now, putting together this Lincoln Project. And I wanted to share with our viewers real quick one of their most recent ads so they can see the great work that they're doing. I'd love to hear what you think about what's going on at the Lincoln Project. And as we're watching this, the real question to ask is, what big prominent names, right? Former Republican presidents that have a W in the middle of their name, current Republican senators and members of the House. What big names can we expect to see to actually come out and not only repudiate Donald Trump, but take the step that you are taking to make it clear you got to vote for Joe Biden? Here's that ad from the Lincoln Project.
The most deceptive, lying president in history finally told the truth. Somehow, It was more shocking than all his deceptions.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Slow the testing down? Slow down our chance to save tens of thousands of lives. Slow down our understanding of where COVID is and how it's spreading. Slow down the steps to reopen the economy. Every single expert told him to test more and test faster. And now we know his response.
Slow the testing down, please.
That's why this November, more than ever, the choice is clear. It's America. Or Trump.
Those are quite literally the stakes, and I think they're cutting some of the best ads this campaign. What do you think, Anna? I mean, you're a media expert. What do you think of the work that they're doing at the Lincoln Project?
I think it all helps, and I think it's an effective campaign. I don't think you should focus on the big names, and there are big names that everybody recognizes who've told me that they don't intend to vote for Donald Trump, and for a lot of folks. A lot of Republicans who don't like Donald Trump, having Joe Biden be the Democratic nominee was a sigh of relief, because he is somebody that has said he can work across the aisle and he can try to be a unifier. We need somebody who can heal the wounds of division in this country. But I think instead of focusing on those big names, we need to focus on the names that we don't know, on the names of the regular people. Let's remember that it was, a handful of states decided this election in 2016. And of those states, many were decided by 7,000 or less votes. Mm-hmm. So, forget about George W. Bush. I hope he comes on board. But people have got to change their own minds, because it's the right thing to do. I think endorsements matter less and less these days, unless it's the endorsement of a Barack Obama, right, let's say. But I think people have got to be very introspective. If they are Republicans, they need to ask themselves, does Donald Trump embody and represent and respect the Republican principles and convictions we grew up with? Everybody knows that the answer is no. The Republican leadership has bent itself into pretzel shapes, in order to accommodate a Donald Trump who has no moral compass, who does not represent Republican principles, or any principle for that matter, whose ideology is one: what is good for Donald Trump? And so, big names are big names, but in today's 24/7 news cycle, big names, it's going to be a tweet that, is up maybe for 24 hours if you're lucky. Focus on grassroots. Focus on all of those Republicans who in their hearts of heart know that he is a danger to national security, who in their hearts of hearts have got to be very uncomfortable by what they read in the John Bolton book, by his foreign policy, by his closeness to dictators, by his closeness and proximity and kowtowing to Vladimir Putin, by his closeness to Erdogan, by his closeness to, by his willingness to speak, and the love letters and the weirdness with Kim Jong. You've got to focus on all of those Republicans who, when they look at themselves in the mirror, know that this man does not represent Christian values, does not represent family values, does not represent a strong foreign policy, does not represent freedom around the world. He represents one thing: Donald Trump.
Punto final. That's absolutely true. Lucas, I know Anna has to head out real soon, but I wanted to know if you had a quick question for her before we wrap this up with you and Raymond.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to be here with you, Anna. So I'm in Venezuela, and I know you're Nika, and honestly, our destinies are intertwined, I think. Países hermanos in a lot of ways. And I wonder if you have any insights into how we can reach out to our communities and ensure that Joe Biden's message resonates and underline just how dangerous Donald Trump is. If you have any tips to really reach our communities in that way.
Look, I think we got to call him out. We got to call him out time and again. And we've got to remind the people from places like Cuba, like Venezuela, like Nicaragua, what strongmen populists with good rhetoric, populist rhetoric, are capable of doing. We've got to remind them of what it's like to censor the press, to call the press enemy of the people. And we're going to hear over and over again, you are going to hear Donald Trump and Republicans claim that voting for a Democrat, that voting for Joe Biden is going to turn America into Venezuela, that Joe Biden wants to turn America into Venezuela. Well, when you hear that, you call bullshit. And you explain to people what is happening in Venezuela, a country where people are getting killed, where people are getting beaten, where people are getting jailed for being political opponents, a country where people are being starved by corruption, by a narco-corrupt government, and a government that Donald Trump, in his own words, more than once now, has said he is willing to meet with Nicolas Maduro. And then the next day, probably Marco Rubio wakes up in the morning very nervous because it's playing really badly in Miami and calls up the White House switchboard and gets to somebody and gets Donald Trump to take back the tweet. Come on, guys. You think he cares? You think he thinks Vladimir Putin and Kim in North Korea are that much different to Maduro? No, he doesn't. Only thing he cares about is electoral politics in South Florida. And what they are doing is manipulating the trauma, manipulating traumatized people, people like me, like my family, like you, like your family, people who have fled communism and socialism, who have felt that pain. They are manipulating that fear. They're manipulating that trauma. They are manipulating that pain for nothing other than electoral gain. They have absolutely no intention of confronting Maduro. That, you know, what Donald Trump has said in his own words, just repeat that. Have that at the ready. And you know, remind people what has happened. We've misled the people of Venezuela into thinking that Donald Trump had their back. And they went out into the streets and they protested. And for days, for weeks, for months, they protested. And some of them got killed. And some of them got put in jail. And some of them got fired. And some of them didn't get food. That's what's happened in Venezuela. Because we fed this fantasy that the Americans were going to come. The cavalry was coming. Donald Trump had the Venezuelan people's backs. Go out into the streets. And Marco Rubio is complicit in that. And everybody else knows exactly what he's doing. And it was all a load of crap. It was all malarkey, as Joe Biden would say, in order to win votes by manipulating people's fears in South Florida. And that is unconscionable. That is a damn shame. And so when you hear it, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear it, they want to turn America into Venezuela. Educate them on what Venezuela is, and educate them on who Donald Trump is vis-a-vis dictators. Be at the ready to combat that every time it raises its head.
Thank you.
Have a big uphill battle on that, but with people like you that are such great communicators as allies, and you've been there for a while. You came to the very first event with Joe Biden in Miami, Florida, here in the state of Florida, and we really appreciate all the support that you've given.
I look at you guys. I'm so proud to see so many young, you guys who are so young being involved and leading this movement. You all are making me feel old, but I'm also feeling hopeful, and I'm feeling hopeful for the future generations. So anything I can do to help, I think our country's future and national security and domestic security depends on this next election. You hear it all the time. And you guys are so young, you're going to hear it even much more than I have. But you're going to hear it all the time. This is the most important election of our lifetime. I'm 48. You guys are probably much younger. It is the most important election of our lifetime. This time, it's not hyperbole. It's the damn truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, democracy and literally the future of our country is on the ballot, right? Whether or not we will have a free and democratic country, because this guy, Leopoldo, who was on just before you, he had a little Freudian slip. he was going to refer to Donald Trump, and he said, Donald Trump. But literally, that's what is happening. We are seeing right before our eyes the president of the United States embrace these authoritarians all over the world and want to become basically a wannabe dictator.
And we saw in the 90s when he reached out to the Cuban regime to make business with Castro. I mean,
right.
what do you expect of this guy?
It's hypocrisy, and it knows no end. Anna, you have been a tremendous guest. The comments are on fire. Everybody's super excited to have seen you on the screen. We've got 133 days left till this election. We certainly hope this is not the last time you'll join us on the Biden for FL live stream. Raymond had some technical glitches. I know he had a really good question, so I hope you'll come back to hear his question and answer it. And we will be watching you on The View. One last quick question. How is Al Cardenas doing? I know that he had some health challenges over the last few weeks.
Yeah, he bought too many things in Amazon and fell carrying a bunch of boxes that blocked his view. But he's doing much better. Thank you for asking. He ended up tearing the tendons right off his kneecap. So
Ouch.
In the middle of this COVID crisis, we ended up in surgery, and it was scary. But he's a tough guy, and he's working hard at therapy, and he's walking again without a brace and without a walker or a cane or a brace. He's walking on his own, and he's doing great.
Well, with you there, I have no doubt that he had all the care that he needed. And thank you for giving us that update on him. Tell him we send him a very warm hug, a virtual one at that. And we wish you both the best. Let's hope that we get past this pandemic soon and can get everybody together to cheer on Joe Biden as we get him into the White House on November 3rd.
This is great, though, because I can sit here in my pajamas.
Yeah. Well,
bye, guys. Good
Anna,
night.
thank you so much. And we'll keep eating the popcorn for you.
Okay.
Have a good night. That was Anna Navarro. What a great interview. I hope Lucas, Robert, and I know Raymond's watching, but had some technical glitches and had to go. I hope those of you at home that were watching enjoyed that interview. We have many, many more interviews like that coming up. So we hope you'll join us every single Tuesday. We usually start around 7 p.m., basically around the time that we are going to be in just about 19 weeks, counting down to that moment where we declare Joe Biden the next president of the United States as those election results come in. We want to kind of build this as a habit to come together in this space on the Biden for FL live stream, where we will be revealing those results to all of you guys. Lucas, real quick, one of the comments mentioned there's an upcoming charla that I know that you guys at Venezolanos Con Biden are organizing. I don't know if you want to share any of that information with the viewers that are tuned in right now.
Absolutely. So Venezolanos for Biden is constantly having events. So please check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. We will soon be having a happy hour with Nicaraguenses and Cubanos for Biden. Of course, every other diaspora group and every other Democratic and pro-Biden group is invited. But please check us out. We have some wonderful guests. Just today, actually, before this talk with Anna and Leopoldo, we had a talk with Congressman Boyle from Pennsylvania. So we truly have some wonderful guests, and I think that the entire Florida Democratic community would really appreciate these events.
Excellent. Yeah, and we definitely encourage everyone to check those out, and again, connect with them on all the social media pages, especially the Facebook page. I also want to share real quick, that's why I was taking a second to get back on the screen. My apologies, guys. Encourage you all to check out on Facebook, especially those of you that are on Facebook, a big event that we have coming up. Those of you that tuned into our live stream last week saw that we did the first ever Ride-In with Biden caravan in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Well, they were so successful, over 300 people participated, we decided to do another one. And so we are actually getting another caravan going this coming Saturday. It's the last weekend of Pride Month. So we are doing a Rainbow Joe Coalition caravan and that's the Facebook page where you can find more information about it. You can look it up, Rainbow Joe Coalition Caravan on Facebook, or you can go to the website caravan.biden4fl.com, and you can sign up there and join us. It's going to be an awesome caravan where we are going to show our support for Joe Biden while supporting our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters in the moment that Donald Trump is increasing his attacks on that community in really disgusting ways, especially in the midst of Pride Month. Before we wrap up, I want to bring Raymond back on the screen. I know that he had some technical glitches during the Ana Navarro interview, but I know you got to hear most of it. I'm going to give the last word to Raymond so he can get an opportunity to ask Ana a question. Raymond, what did you think of what you did hear from Ana, and any last message that you have for the audience across the state of Florida and beyond that are watching us tonight?
Well, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Good night, actually. Well, I mean, what can I say? She's a mouthful. She's an incredible speaker. She's one of my favorite commentators on CNN. My favorite moment is her filing her nails while talking about President Trump. She's great. From what I heard, she supported the McCains during the 2008 election, and that's fine. And I really just have to revamp and reiterate what she said about Vice President Biden, and that's that he's a man of tremendous character, a man that's heartfelt, who truly and deeply understands the people that he represents, and people who don't even want him to represent them. He understands them. He can empathize. He can feel pain, and that's just something that we're lacking in the White House currently. I feel strongly that we have a great chance here in the state of Florida to turn back our state blue, and to also turn it blue back for Joe Biden and anyone else who's running for governor, mayor, senator, state representative. We have the opportunity, but the peril is making sure that we are getting people out to vote. That's the most important thing. We can't emphasize that enough. I won't be able to vote, but I can get 10 people who think like me, who look like me, who talk like me to get out and vote. That's the most important thing that we have to focus here on, and I cannot stress it enough. Get out and vote. I just like to talk about something Leopoldo said. My family is very diverse. The community I surround myself in is very diverse. I'm an Afro-Cuban. I'm also from the Bahamas, and so in that way, I can relate that way to the Black Lives Matter movement as an African-American male growing up in America, in South Florida at that. And as a rather successful person, I understand the successes and the failures of the African American and Latino community, and I can see it on both sides. I want to encourage everyone on the call tonight to kind of, just have a conversation with your Latino brothers and your African American brothers and your Caucasian friends, and really, really get into the root, talk about the candidate who can bind us all together, and that we find that candidate in Joe Biden. And that's why I'm honored, I am proud, and I am humbled to be supporting Vice President Biden. And I feel that he is going to, if no one else can do it in Washington, whether he becomes president or not, and without a doubt, we know that he will. We know that anything that he sets his mind to, anything that he can put his hand to, that he will be successful, and that he will have every American in mind. Whether you're from Dade County or Volusia County, you will be in Vice President Joe Biden's mind at the end of the day. And that's why I support him. And that's why I can agree with Ms. Navarro in that as well, that he's a man of tremendous character. And that's what I really feel, and that's why I support him. But other than that, I wish everyone the best. Keep working hard to get Vice President Biden in office. And I'm going to continue my post with Broward for Biden. So if you're on this call and you're not in Broward for Biden, I encourage you to get in. It's an incredible group led by myself and Lourdes Diaz, as well as Chris. So if you're interested in finding out any events that are happening in Broward, or just trying to, not feel alone in supporting Vice President Biden in Broward, join our group on Facebook. We'll be happy to have you, and I will admit you into the group chat as soon as I can, but we will be more than happy to have you. And so I just like to applaud the other young men, Lucas and Robert, for doing the same thing and taking the same initiative. It means, as the Vice President says, it means a great deal. So thank you all.
It does, and it's so great to know that we have tremendous leaders organizing digitally for Joe Biden. Lucas on Venezolanos Con Biden. Robert is helping with the entire state with Biden for FL, and he's also just now taking the reins on Voters for Biden. So as if Robert didn't have his hands full enough. And Raymond's helping in Broward. We've got, if you're anywhere in the state of Florida, we've got a regional group where we've got a great team member as part of the volunteer team of Biden for FL that is ready to accept you into the group and help you get activated, help you connect with the folks that can help you help Joe Biden win, and make sure that you are also helping to digitally organize for Joe Biden and finding creative ways to spread his message. I think we've had a tremendous program tonight. So that only begs the question, what do we have in store for you next week? You'll have to tune in. So make sure you're following us here on Biden for FL, Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and we'll make sure to share some nice tips about what we've got coming up for you next Tuesday evening around 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in. Thank you all for being a part of the program, for the wonderful questions that you shared, and make sure you share this video so that Ana Navarro and Leopoldo's message get to as many people as possible all over the state of Florida and beyond. And together, in 133 days, we will flip Florida blue with Biden. We'll go out with one last video from the Lincoln Project.
A record of service, a bipartisan leader who puts good ideas ahead of party politics. America knows Joe Biden. He is the man for this moment. Joe Biden's life has been marked by triumphs that didn't change the goodness in him, and public office that never went to his head. Loss and tragedy forged in him a strength and character this country needs more than ever. Not every American will agree with Joe Biden on every issue, but they know he'll unify this nation again. He won't see just Democrats or Republicans. He'll see Americans.
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.